I came in contact with ISKCON in 1978 in New Zealand, and I was there for about a year. Then in 1979, my temple president in New Zealand sent me to Mayapur because things weren't going so well in New Zealand. So he sent me to Mayapur, and I arrived in Calcutta and immediately joined the Mayapur Travelling Sankirtan Party under Bhaktinanda Swarup Swami. And we went on travelling Sankirtan for some time, and then came to Mayapur sometime probably April or May in 1979. I liked it in Mayapur because it was very simple. Back then, everybody knew all the devotees in the temple, and there was just the long building and the lotus building, and there were no distractions from spiritual life. Everything was very centered around Radha Madhava and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and it was very easy to be Krishna conscious in such a setting because there was really nothing else you could do. I don't know how many devotees, maybe 50, 55, but certainly everybody knew. We all knew each other. There were no people that you didn't know. So it wasn't a huge community. Mainly brahmacharis, one or two grihastas, foreign grihastas, and a few Bengali grihastas. But most of the temple were brahmacharis. It was very simple. I think the grihastas lived in a long building. The Bengali grihastas had rooms out at the Goshala, and I was brahmachari that time. Life was not complicated. There was morning program, then little service during the day, evening program, prasadam 2 times in the big kitchen where Sulabh Bhojanalaya is now. There were no shops, there was no... The Mahar all stayed in the Lotus building for the pujaris and sannyasis and senior devotees. So it was a very simple, straightforward life. And I liked that. I helped with the construction in a lot of areas. I was doing the purchasing for Mayapur construction, and it was quite exciting to see so many buildings coming up. The new conch building came up, guest houses were built, and prasadam halls were arranged because Mayapur was growing at such a rate. Visitors were coming. They had to have places to stay. There had to be arrangements for their prasadam. So Mayapur was gradually becoming a huge preaching project because so many thousands of people were visiting. So as it developed, it was very nice to see that Prabhupada's vision for Mayapur was being fulfilled. In the room I had, there was no fan, so all through the summer, there was no cooling breeze from the fan. It was not, it was very bare bones. There was no bed. You were shown a room, and it was just the room. There was nothing else in it. There was no fan, a room and a light, and a clay water pot. And that would be, there was no bed, no bedding, no mosquito net, no fan. It was, like I said, very simple. When I wasn't doing book distribution and Sankirtan, I had the service to look after the maintenance of the buildings. Check the taps, check the lights, check for anything that needed to be done. So it wasn't a very demanding day. And the rest of the time, there was really very little except reading and chanting. And, you could go to the Ganga. That time it would be 5 to 10 minute walk, because Ganga was so far away. And then come back. But there was no distraction from the life of hearing and chanting and attending the program. So that you get a taste from that, a very high taste. And because of that, I wanted to stay in Mayapur, not for any other reason really. It certainly wasn't for the facilities. Right. So then initially I did traveling Sankirtan, then I did book distribution in Calcutta, then I came out to Mayapur and looked after the maintenance. Then I was assistant to Shatadhanna for a little while. I was in the Mayapur project with Rajaram and Pancharatna Prabhu. I was in Gurukul. Then I joined the purchase department for construction when Harikesh Prabhu came. I worked in the Samadhi with Bharat Maharaj Prabhu doing the terracotta panels and the top of Prabhupada's Singhasan. I was assistant secretary to Narugopal Prabhu for a while. I worked for SNPD, Sri Mayapur Project Development, and then under that I worked for Sri Mayapur Vikas Sangha. Then I worked for a while with TOVP before any work actually started. And now I'm in the deity department as corresponding secretary for Chinanivas and Pankajandri Prabhus. Okay, over the years, Mayapur has been attacked several times. One time I would have the nighttime shift with a shotgun on the Lotus building with big belters, shotgun shells, like Pancho Villa across the chest. Just walking around, keeping an eye out, watching for dacoits, watching for any trouble. There was no police camp close by at that time. So you felt a little vulnerable, because if a gang of dacoits come, they come with pipe guns, bombs, machetes, dars, and there's really not much defense. So you have to depend on Krishna. Then we've had many floods, I think 6-7 floods while I've been here. In the last flood, my wife went into labor. No, not last, second before last. So I had to take her by boat to the road and get a car to the... It's not easy. So you have to... It brings out your dependence on Krishna, because you realize that there's so much is not in your control, and that you're helpless in many situations. And that's very helpful for spiritual life, to feel dependent on the Lord and powerless against material nature. So there's probably other countries similar, but not so much in England, Europe, Australia. Are you so at the mercy of conditions as used to be in Mayapur? So I found that helpful in spiritual life. I would, to encourage people to visit Mayapur, well, a visit is one thing. You can visit anytime during the year. You can visit Gopurnima, you can visit Kartik, Kirtan, Mela. That's wonderful. But if you plan to move to Mayapur, then don't keep an option to go back. One of the reasons I'm still in Mayapur is that I didn't really have an option to go somewhere else, because at times it's very challenging. It's very intense in Mayapur. Devotional service is very intense. I don't think it's probably as intense as Vrindavan, but India is an intense place, and devotional service in Mayapur is intense, and it's the fast track for spiritual advancement. So there's a lot of tests, and there's a lot of obstacles and hurdles to overcome. So you're likely to get them thrown at you, it seems to me, faster than in other places. So if you decide to live in Mayapur, I think it's a first-class decision. But don't keep an option, because otherwise, when there's a difficulty, when there's a problem, when some issues come up, you'll go for the option and leave. And once you leave, it's quite rare that devotees come back again, because for some reason the spiritual bliss or the spiritual achievements don't stick in the memory as well as material comforts do in the West. But if spiritual advancement is what you want, if you want to actually get out of the bodily concept of life, and you want to appreciate chanting Hare Krishna, then this is the Yuga Dharma, this is the birthplace of Mahaprabhu, this is our world headquarters. You will not find any better place to do that than here. Well, as a Grihastha in Mayapur, you have a little bit to accept Krishna's arrangement, which comes to you through the society. Some people live quite comfortably, and some people have to struggle. There's a sliding scale of income depending on service. If you have your own business, that's fine, your own income. But otherwise, you have to have a acceptance of the Lord's arrangement. And the educational arrangements are mixed. So you can choose whether you want Gurukul or whether you want something connected with the Oxford Board in England. And the great benefit of being a Grihastha in Mayapur is your children don't have to mix with anyone who is not devotee. It's a fully self-contained society, where the school and the parties and the marriages and all the social life is all amongst devotees. So for that reason, I would recommend anyone concerned about their children's Krishna consciousness that you bring them up in Mayapur, where they only mix with devotees. And it makes life much easier for them, because they don't have to choose between a Kami way of life and a devotee way of life. It's quite straightforward. So that's a very big advantage of living in Mayapur, and one that I think a lot of devotees are appreciating more and more now as they come here with their children, and they feel confident the children won't be exposed to a lot of the very, very unpleasant things that go on in non-devotee life outside.
है न भोजी समैन गोराप है न भो